if you want to work in a nonprofit, your skill set has to fit what the organization is looking for. That's very important. If you don't have a clear identity and you don't know what kind of job you can do, and if you haven't done the research that everybody talked about, you won't get a job. The culture is important. The values. Values was mentioned very briefly. Values is very, very important. There has to be, in work, you have content of work, which is what do you do. You have context of work, which is the setting that you do it in. And then you have the third dimension, I call it, which is values. Do your values fit the mission of the organization? And if they don't, you're going to be out of sync.
There's really only 4 questions every hiring manager is going to ask themselves about a job seeker. Can they do the job? And that has to do with skill set. Will they do the job? That has to do with motivation. How will they fit into the team? Obviously, we know what that means. And my personal favorite is, can I stand being around this person 8 hours a day? And I think the 4th one and the 3rd one probably trumps the 1st one and the 2nd one. If you can't fit into the team, if you do have a personality problem or if you're a problem child or behavior problem, you're not going to be hired. And so the soft skills that we teach at JVS, besides the hard skills that you need, we feel are probably even more important than the skills in this stuff. That's what really seals the deal on most hiring managers.
A recent Johns Hopkins study found that while other sectors have been shedding jobs for several years now, the nonprofit sector is actually still growing. It's not growing as much as it was, say, before the recession, but it is growing. In fact, between 2009 and 2010, it grew 1%, while it was 5% the year before in growth. The for-profit sector, employment had declined 6.2% in 2009 and 0.9% in 2010. So that's big. I mean, you're talking about, these horrible headlines all the time about there's no jobs, and actually here's this sector of our economy that's actually still growing in all this.
In there. So how do you really separate yourself out from just one other person submitting your resume? And it does get back to what you've all been hearing, is about relationships. And I encourage everybody to use LinkedIn to find somebody that you know who knows somebody in that organization, do the informational interviews. And I have found that, like you, Julie, and like many of you in the room, I too was laid off for 8.5 months before I got this position. So I was right at the beginning of the lovely economy taking the downturn, and I focused heavily on doing these informational meetings.
When we are looking at candidates, we're definitely looking for someone who has that passion, that drive to really be in a nonprofit. If you are just looking for another job, just to get more money, or just because you're out of a job, and so you're looking for other nonprofits or for-profit, you might want to double think that, because nonprofit is very much, like someone stated before, different than for-profit. You'd be in for a culture shock. The culture in nonprofits is, for the most part, warm, at least at SHED. Warm, friendly, inviting. Someone who's not very personable or not very friendly or want to really have that open communication might not see SHED or any other nonprofit as a good fit. So you really have to have that passion, that drive to really want to work in a nonprofit organization.
I think the most important thing that I would suggest is that you do some research into the sector. Our sector is so diverse. Several of the panelists have mentioned, the difference between working at a $200,000 organization and working for a $100 million organization is so drastically different. The cultures of those organizations are going to be different, and your skill sets may or may not transfer for one of those organizations. It may be that you're perfect for working for a small organization, or it may be that you're perfect to work at a larger organization. You really kind of need to know that about yourself, so that as you're looking for job opportunities, you're looking for the ones that are the best fit based on your interest and your skills.
It's not an easy transition from the corporate world to the nonprofit world. But I will say it's an easier transition than going from the nonprofit world to the corporate world. Can you align your strengths, your skills, your experience, your values with the goals and challenges of that nonprofit organization? That is critical to do in your resume, in your cover letter, and certainly in your interview.